Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to First People's House at the University of Victoria. It is an honor to have you here today for this ceremony and conversation with Hereditary Chief Frank Brown. And to get us started in a good way, I want to invite Elder Frank George from the Songhees Nation up to give us some opening remarks. And thank you, Elder George.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all here today for this important workshop. Siep na chilacha, siep na shawalakwa. My highly respected friends and relatives. I kwanis kwadanga hela. It's great to see you all. Asa wolkaletsa. Jessa Ethla Sin at Lakwangan. My name is Frank George. I'm from Lakwangan, land of the smoked herring. I Constachel Atha Kha Ilanakwa at Lakwangan. Welcome to the sacred homelands of the Lakwangan people. Heichkwa Kwanzane Athla T escapeth. Thank you for coming to this important event. Tiria Sensa, I will pray. Heichkwa Atha Hawes Quachel. Tachadi Quam Cop the Squaliquans. Tha stalitkesta I tha salhuinsta. Please make the mind strong of our children and our elders, and all of us here. Tachadi quam comp the squaliquans at Eastlingeth. Make our minds strong. Heichkwa atha mak songastang. Thank you for all the gifts. Tha dethakwa, the ocean. Tha chachak tongeth, the sacred earth. Heichkwa thesis siemp. Thank you, High Honorable One, Creator. Heichkwa C.E.M.P. Thank you, honored ones. Aichkwa Siep. Aichkwa Siep. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm very anxious to hear the speaker speak on climate change as well. We all got a lot to learn about that. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Aichkwa Siep.
Thank you, Elder George. Thank you. So I'm Ian Morrow. I'm the Executive Director of the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions. And I want to acknowledge that we have a live broadcast happening. And so there are people coming from diverse Indigenous territories into this space over the internet. And I just want to acknowledge them and ask that they also pay respects to the territories and lands that they are on of Indigenous peoples where they inhabit. And with that in mind, I want to invite up lálíya Kynes, the Vice President Indigenous for the University of Victoria, to also give a welcome.
Hello, everyone. It's a real honor to be here. I just want to begin by thanking Elder Frank George for your welcome to territory, to the Lakwangan territory, Esquimalt and Cosapsan people, and your prayer for really taking the time to take care of us as guests in this space and on these lands. It's really meaningful. Haichkasiam. The Coast Salish community of the local nations have been so generous in guiding and directing me personally and our office, the ATOL Out, the Office of the Vice President Indigenous. My name is lálíya Kynes, and I'm from the Comox Nation on my father's side. My grandfather has ties to Qualicum First Nation, and my grandmother to Sinemoth Nation. I'm of European descent on my mother's side. I'm the intern Vice President Indigenous at the ATOL Out, Office of Vice President Indigenous. The word ATOL Out translates to the Center for Respect for the Rights of One Another and All Beings. We really work to honor the laws and the protocols of the local nations. Our vision and principles are rooted in the following Coast Salish teachings, and I'm going to practice my Lekwungen language. We have been very fortunate to have language knowledge keepers and elders share these words with us and share the language, and we also have recordings on our website. So I want to begin with Squess, which is the laws and philosophies. The first one I want to talk about is Eauta Utsa Chlengenta. Remember our ancestors and our birthright. Newessen Eitschkwelewin. Bring in your good heart and your good mind. Natzamat Quinstei. Work together. Letchout Aletzomuk Staichichum. Be prepared for the work to come. So our office is responsible for respecting and supporting Indigenous ways of knowing and being, and ensuring that it permeates and enriches everything we do. We really are grateful for the elders and the knowledge keepers that work with us. We have a really great group of elders, part of Elders' Voices, that have time in this space in the First Peoples House to provide support to students, staff, and faculty. And we also really honor self-determination and inherent rights with the local First Nations. And we are responsible for the implementation of Coenistal, which translates to helping move each other forward, which is the university's Indigenous plan. I want to acknowledge and thank the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions for creating space for today's event and the opportunity to hear from Hereditary Chief Frank Brown from Bella Bella. I've been to this beautiful territory, and I've sat with the elders in your territory, and we've supported many students coming to UVic, including your children, Jessica and Saul. I want to thank PICS for strengthening and enacting our university's own relational responsibilities and accountabilities in embracing the teachings of Eauta Atsa Chalengenta, remembering our ancestors and our birthright. I hold my hands up to you with gratitude. And on behalf of A2L, we wish you the best of your time spent together and hope you make meaningful connections and relationships to move this work forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lolita. It takes a community to build this kind of event. So our PICS team has been working really hard on this. We've got a live broadcast team. We've got the university showing up with our president, Robina Thomas, our vice president, Fraser Hoff. There are so many dignitaries in the room. I just want to thank you all for coming. And to further start us in a good way, I want to invite up a couple important folks. We've got Tom Childs and Randy Cook, who are going to drum us in a good way. And so I'd encourage you to welcome them to the floor to start us off with some song and the drum. So thank you, Tom and Randy.
My name is Hamisinut Tom Child. I'm from the community of Fort Rupert. I'm Quagils. I'm also a former UVic student. I still have to be careful while I park around here. I'm really proud that my daughter's here today and also racking up parking tickets now. So I figure if I keep singing, they won't put a boot on that. I was a former student here in environmental studies and biology, and it's wonderful to witness this coming together of minds around climate change and the important work that Indigenous peoples are leading. And it's a great honor to stand with our family, our northern family from the Heiltsuk. Chief lálíya sila is one family with ours. We always support the work that him and Kathy do, and they're wonderful leaders. And a lot of our songs, I appreciate Lalita's comments and our elders' comments about the laws, the prayers that come into spaces. And we're going to share one song just to express our connection to the Heiltsuk. All of the Tlualacha ceremonies come from our northern tribes. They did not originate amongst the Kwagilth and Kwakwaka'wakw. They come from the northerners. And so we know that and acknowledge that in our potlatches today. And it's a song of shared connection and solidarity. We're one coast, one canoe family. And even though we have great diversity of languages and of territories and ceremonies, we stand together with our northern family today. And I'm going to ask Chief Makwala if he wants to say anything. No, I'm good. After? Okay. So we'll sing one song. I'm going to stand over here, just so the mic doesn't. So that beautiful song contains the memory of our ancestor, and that song comes to us from our Heiltsuk relations, and it contains the story of that great chief and his, it's a chief's peace dance. And we know that it comes from our northern relations, and it's an honor to stand with Ian and Frank and the family today, and thank once again our hosts for the welcome us into so we can have one song and one voice today. Kira kastauka.
Thank you, Tom, and everyone that helped make that possible. For people that are standing in the back, feel free to come in. There's seats at the front here. Make yourselves comfortable. This is really a celebration today and a ceremony. And it's a complicated time. We are living in a moment where climate change is affecting all kinds of change that we see around us. And in some ways, that can be daunting. It can be overwhelming. It can send us into a bit of a frenzy in our own minds and hearts. And I think today we want to center ourselves, and we want to do that in a good way by being responsive to First People in these territories that have so much to teach us about how to live in relationship with the land, but also how to navigate a very complex future. And so at PICS, the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions, we're trying to do that in a bunch of different dimensions. We have people working on policy. We have people working on mitigation, reducing greenhouse gases. We have people working with decision makers. We have a team of people that is trying to kind of enter the complexity of that climate issue in its totality. And that's impossible. But we're trying to do our part in partnership with a lot of people that are in the room right now. And when I first got to PICS 3 years ago in November, I made a commitment that as an organization in British Columbia, where there is unceded territory and First Nations leadership on climate change, unparalleled in the world, that we would start by asking the question, how can we serve? How can we help? How can we provide resources, research, and things that follow that Indigenous leadership? And that's why we're here today, to follow that commitment. And to start off that work, we actually created an Indigenous Climate Fellows program. And our first Indigenous Climate Fellow was Sila, the Inuit leader that helped make climate change and human rights an issue, to actually think about those things together. She got co-nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize with Al Gore. And we made a podcast with her that is now a finalist in a major podcast award. So you can check it out online. It's another resource that you can have when you leave this space to kind of think about a hopeful future, a radical act of hope. And I want to thank the Vice President Indigenous Office. We blanketed Sila in this space when she was here in the spring. So trying to bring those relationships and that honor to the people that we work with who are doing that good work. And we are so fortunate to have Hereditary Chief Frank Brown as our next Indigenous Climate Fellow from the Heiltsuk Nation. It is a true honor. Frank is a true leader in the climate conservation space and working with communities and researchers to kind of land that complexity in land research and knowledge co-production in a good way. And so thank you, Frank, for being here. On behalf of everyone in this room right now, we are really honored to be in your presence and hear your words later in the program. I'm a filmmaker and an environmental scientist, and I had the privilege of making a film with David Suzuki about climate change in BC, and I was shooting in 2014, and he said, if there's one thing you do on this coast, you go to Bella Bella and you meet Frank Brown. And you go to tribal canoe journeys and you see what is going on there. And Frank Brown, for many of you will know, helped to kind of found and create the space for tribal canoe journeys to flourish. And it is a resurgence of tribal canoe culture across the entire BC coast down into the States, and now increasingly from people around the world. And we had the privilege of working with Frank, actually writing up the story of the Heiltsuk Nation's effort to start that Indigenous cultural resurgence through tribal canoe journeys, and it's written up in a book on the politics of the canoe. When I met Frank, he said, "You will not make a movie with us as window dressing in the background of your film." He said, if you're here, you're going to make a film with and for our community. And we said, okay, how do we do that? And we started making a film about that year of tribal canoe journeys. And we showed Frank the film. He said, you make pretty good films. I want you to make me a feature film. And so we ended up making a feature film about Gilwa, the resurgence of the ocean-going canoe, with Vina Brown, Frank's daughter, and a grad student, Hillary Beatty. And that is also another resource you can check out. And Frank's commitment to this coast is in many ways legendary. He has worked to build that canoe resurgence, but he's also working with the Guardians to connect in with local communities and their capacity to observe, monitor, and uphold the strength of the coast, the resilience of the coast in community, but also ecologically. And we'll talk about that shortly. He's the senior advisor to the Indigenous Leadership Initiative and is the lead for the Pacific region for Guardians. And today we're here to celebrate a historic partnership with the First Nations Leadership Council. And I want to recognize Hugh Breaker and Robert Phillips from the First Nations Summit, who are here to represent the First Nations Leadership Council today. They developed a climate strategy and action plan in 2022. That was the year I started at PICS, and that was the mandate. It was like, it's right there, clear, written down, what BC First Nations want to see happen on climate. And so in the year and a bit that kind of happened after that, we developed a relationship protocol around PICS and the FNLC working together to support the BC First Nation climate strategy, but also the action plan for disaster risk reduction. And we'll speak about that in a moment. And I really want to open up the floor here to Jana Whale, who is our Indigenous Research and Partnerships lead, who is helping to lead this work with Emily McNair and other people from our team to take you a little bit further down that journey of what we're up to, where we're at, and I think the significant meaning it has for relationships, for research, for university partnerships with the community. And over to you, Jana Whale.
Yeah. Thank you. Simgigat Sigidamhana Gabawilsa Amasokswa Jana Whale Wae Gidamax Nii Gisan Lahiep Noch Laurel Whale Creme Tea near Meadow Lake and Spiritwood, Saskatchewan, Nagot Cliff Whale Wilsalaxi Gitsan, Lu Amogodi Wengasam. Tonse, Jana Dishni Kashon, Victoria Niwicken, Mista High, Spiritwood and Meadow Lake, Monfami, Shinakashu, Charette, and Arkand. My name is Jana Whale, and I am Gitsan from Gidamax First Nation on my dad's side, and I'm also Cree Métis on my mother's side. My parents are Cliff Whale and Laurel Tier, and I am the Indigenous Research and Partnerships lead at the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions. In this role, I work at the intersection of Indigenous governance and climate research, really working to create space where Western science and Indigenous knowledge can meet in respectful and reciprocal ways. Today, I want to share a story in 3 parts. The first part is the vision of the BC First Nations climate strategy. The second part is the mechanism of the relationship protocol, and then the actions that bring this partnership to life. So the BC First Nations climate strategy and action plan is a First Nations-led strategy that sets out clear collective vision for climate action. It was developed by and for First Nations, and it is endorsed by the First Nations Leadership Council. At its heart, the strategy really affirms that climate action must be grounded in First Nations title, in First Nations rights, and responsibilities to the lands and waters. It recognizes that First Nations have been leading on stewardship since time immemorial, and that effective climate solutions must respect and honor that leadership. It lays out priorities across adaptation, mitigation, and governance, and provides a pathway for communities, governments, and partners to move forward in alignment with nations' self-determined values. The strategy is really the why behind our partnership, and it gives us direction and grounding. In January of this year, the First Nations Leadership Council, FNLC, and PICS signed a relationship protocol, the first of its kind. This protocol is more than a document. It really is a commitment to do research differently. It sets out a framework where research is guided by First Nations priorities and where co-design is central and accountability is shared. It acknowledges title and rights, and it respects Indigenous knowledge systems, and it establishes processes to ensure that research is not extractive, but is supportive instead. In many ways, the protocol is the how. It's how we align research with nations' visions and how we ensure that academic institutions are accountable to First Nations leadership. This agreement is monumental. It matters because our communities, Indigenous communities, are on the front lines of climate change. In talking with Chief Brown this morning, he reminded me that this agreement is really a chance to right historical wrongs and to shape a different future together. But this is also just the start of that journey. The real work is ahead of us. And moving forward together, we have a chance to align on climate action and work towards our responsibilities with the land and also to each other. And in practice, this looks like creating space for dialogue and learning through forthcoming actions like the Circle of Practice that we're hoping to establish in the coming months. It looks like welcoming Chief Frank Brown as our new Indigenous Climate Fellow and bringing ceremony and cultural leadership into academic spaces, which is how we all came to be in this space and share time together today. But most importantly, it looks at uplifting the voices of youth. In many of the early conversations that we had around the relationship protocol, capacity building was emphasized as an integral part of supporting our people. The launch of the Uplifting Reciprocal Research Scholarship marks a significant step towards capacity building by supporting young people directly. This scholarship uplifts emerging Indigenous scholars as well as non-Indigenous scholars who are working directly with First Nations partners on community-led climate action. You've likely heard it before. Our youth are our future. They're the ones that are doing this work, and they're the ones that will also live with the impacts of climate change. And as an Indigenous youth myself, I know so many Indigenous youth who are doing this work and who are demonstrating the ability to and the desire to lead. We really just need to create that space. The scholarship program is more than funding. It's about letting students know that people are in their corner, that we see them, that we value them, and that we're committed to walking alongside them. And the scholarship program is dedicated to two Heiltsuk matriarchs, Leona and Valerie Humchip, who passed away tragically earlier this year in an accident. In many Indigenous communities, women have always been at the heart of climate leadership. As mothers, as grandmothers, as life givers, they're the ones that are thinking about the future of our communities and who are leading the way with that responsibility. Valerie and Leona's work, both in climate and education, are a testament to values that they not only believed, but that they lived. And their work and their legacy continue to guide us, reminding us that this work is about building a foundation that we can be proud of for generations to come. In 2021, I was a part of the youth mentorship program through Indigenous Clean Energy. As a part of this program, each youth participant was matched with a mentor, and my best friend, Aubrey, was matched with Leona. While Leona was not my mentor, she always made sure to include me and uplift me in any way that she could. And I will forever miss seeing her speak truth to power on stages at conferences or say, "Hello, beautiful," whenever I got to see her in person. Leona was a role model to me and many other Indigenous young people who are working to make a difference in our communities, for our people. Though I did not get to meet Valerie, I've heard that she continues to inspire many and that her legacy was also one of kindness and of a deep dedication and commitment to uplifting the strength of our people. Leona and Valerie were leaders in every sense of the word. And with the permission of the family, we are proud to play a small part in honoring their legacy through the creation of the scholarship, which really does focus on uplifting Indigenous wisdom and demonstrating reciprocity through research. But rather than just hearing that from me, we also wanted to share the voices of some scholars directly. Our videographer, Matt, has put together a short video highlighting a few of our First Nations recipients and the good work that they are doing and will continue to do through the scholarship program.
And Matt Miles from our team, who's behind the camera right now, put this together with the voices of these young First Nation scholars about what this scholarship means to them. So we're going to cue the video now, and here we go.
My name's Brian Timmer. I am a Stalo First Nations from Shawathel. I'm also a PhD student in the Bomb Lab in the biology department at the University of Victoria.
Hello, my name is Michael. I'm really grateful to be here with you guys today. I'm from Heiltsuk Nation, and I am completing an MBA in Sustainable Innovation at the University of Victoria.
Good afternoon, good people. My name is Dr. Stafgawas Lucy Bell, and I belong to the Haida Nation, and I'm really glad to be here. How'a.
My name is Elizabeth Salpizza Ignace. I normally go by Lizzie, and I'm from Skeechton Traditional Territory. Outside of academics, I am a mother to a wonderful 3-year-old daughter who you might be able to hear her TV in the background.
I just finished my PhD in Haida Museology at Simon Fraser University, and the focus of my study was in Haida, we call it Kliyata, making things right. How does Haida repatriation, Haida museology make things right? And it extends into how we care for the environment, and I'm really looking forward to this next stage in my research.
I study kelp forests and kelp forest ecosystems, and especially how they are changing under climate change. Any body of water that you're working in or on or under is traditional territory of some or often multiple First Nations. And so our kelp forests are these really important, they're the foundation of a lot of our coastal ecosystems.
Finishing uni, I got my agrologist designation, and my main work has been in agrology, looking at culturally significant plants, specifically food plants, and how to revitalize those in the community. We know with climate change, there's been a lot of changes in plants, especially food plants, especially berries plants. My research is specifically looking at trying to revitalize Saskatoon and just studying the drivers and forces of variances in Saskatoon.
My research is focused on the impacts of coast fund investments into coastal Indigenous communities in the Great Barrier Rainforest and the culmination and propagation of the conservation economy and the ways that we can bring economic systems in line with Indigenous laws and values.
I am very interested in the clues that I've been finding in museums, in archives, in Haida stories, the clues that our ancestors have left us on how to be good stewards of the land.
Reciprocity in research looks like making sure that the things that you're doing in your research are directly benefiting others.
Really doing that exchange of ideas and having that 50-50 reciprocity is really what is guiding my research and what honestly reciprocity means to me.
I am really looking forward to that, to be able to give back to my community, to be part of the solution and action in my community. Because of scholarships like this, I can do the work for my community, and because of this work that I can do for my community, I feel like my community as well is able to be uplifted. So not just uplifting of the self, but uplifting of the community, and that togetherness is just wonderful.
The time spent using the resources of academia is given back to the communities that have provided the scholars. And I think that is reciprocal research. And I think that creates a relationship, not a transaction.
Being an Indigenous scholar, I think it just is in us to want to uplift our communities, uplift our Kunisi, our ancestors, and uplift our research.
Getting this scholarship really honestly is very validating in that it feels like the things that I've kind of been working towards, are actually making a difference, and it's really nice to have that recognized.
This scholarship is more than a scholarship to me. It's endorsement from Leona from beyond, because I know that she would have loved to see something like this accessible to Indigenous scholars from all walks of life and all different fields of interest, working to create research and knowledge that goes back into our communities directly, and being a recipient of that feels like another endorsement from her, and another blessing and a hug from her.
Yeah, it speaks to the power of story. It speaks to the power of young people. It speaks to the power of people standing up and coordinating and getting organized to really make sure that next generation has a platform to launch off of and to do that good work. But it's also about connecting with that next generation. And we have today with us Hereditary Chief Frank Brown from the Heiltsuk Nation. And when we talked about this event and we said that we wanted to put the relationship protocol in ceremony, Frank said, well, if we're going to make it a ceremony, then I'm going to open my treasure box. And so this is a very real moment for all of us in this space. I want to thank Frank and his family, Kathy, for making this possible for us. And I want to acknowledge the online audience. The online audience is here with us. We have many people streaming in from other places. But unfortunately, this moment is not for you. This is inside the kind of ceremonial hall at First People's House. So once the ceremony starts, You'll get a card on the screen that says we'll be back with you, and that's because the mask is not to be filmed. And so on that note, Hereditary Chief Frank Brown, over to you. Do you have any opening remarks for the community of people that have gathered in person or online here today?
Yo himas, waiumax, huawanis asam, nugwa gladliasila, the Heiltsuk, Gokwait, and Eastate tribes. Greetings to all of you. Thank you all for coming out. My Heiltsuk name is Gladliasila. My English name is Frank Brown. I'm honored to be here to share with you today and participate in this important work that was signed off in protocol, but we wanted to bring ceremony to validate it. And it's in our traditional ways, so it's my honor to support this work.
Thank you, Chief Brown. On the screen right now, we have a slide from Staying the Course, Staying Alive, and it's an online resource that Kathy and Frank wrote. And Frank asked that this be shared as a resource that you can take home with you in terms of checking it out online, but also to talk about some of the important work that is expressed in this document, specifically the NALA or weather mask. And Frank, do you want to share with people what happened here and what they experienced and the significance of this mask and what it means to the people?
So the Heiltsuk, like many other First Nations place-based peoples, have a long history of continuous living in our territories, and validated by Western science carbon dating that goes back over 14,000 years of continuous occupation. Come from a really ancient society, over 700 generations of continuously living in our homelands. And to put it into some perspective, Canada as a nation state is celebrating 158 years young, mere couple of lifetimes. And all through that time, our people developed laws and systems of governance. And all through that time, it was fairly predictable around the weather. You know, for the first 7,000 years, there was, our people were harpooning sea mammals. And back 14,000 years, there was mile-high ice that covered North America. And so our people lived right on the edge of that ice. And there were saber-toothed tigers roaming the earth and giant sloths. And I was curious when I seen this archaeological report, and it talked about this long history of our people, and wondering what the rest of humanity was doing 14,000 years ago. And like they were on the plains of Asia harvesting wild barley, as an example. So the antiquity of our societies along the coast is significant because the Nala, the weather, was a predictable within a spectrum. But in such a short period of time, we have witnessed the boom and bust in our world, the decline of the salmon and the herring and the bottom fish, and in a very, very brief time. And I didn't want to just talk about this. I wanted to establish for you this rich and ancient cultures of the first peoples as a sample of our tremendous history. And I think that we have something to offer, because with Western science, you usually require a baseline to establish, like, for example, river valley systems that are intact so that we could figure out, like for our salmon, but there's something very strange going on where in our part of the world we do have intact river valley systems, but the salmon has been in rapid decline. I was talking to a CM today who spoke about the salmon in Alberni being half of the weight they were within his lifetime. And it just goes on like this. And for our people, whether we come from Bella Bella or we come from the interior or the north, all have stories and bear witness to this harsh impacts that are occurring in the natural world. And so we wanted to contextualize this a little bit for you. So check this out. We wrote this during the International Year of Biodiversity. And there was a question about, like I was sitting in a room full of 40 scientists and I said, in all due respect, this doesn't reflect the First Nations worldview on biodiversity loss. And so I gathered knowledge keepers from Haida, Heiltsuk, and Namgis, and over many cups of tea, met with these elder women, knowledge keepers, that advised us on our core values that we shared along the coast. One of the women, her father was busted for doing exactly what we just shared. And chiefs from our southern relatives and neighbors were imprisoned in Ocala for Indian dancing and for gifting out. I paid the singers to thank them for supporting this work. The very things that sustained our society for millennia were legislated as criminal activities. And deep inside of that was embedded an incredible knowledge and wisdom of sustainability. And it's a powerful reflection of our resiliency. And so it brings us to this place of having a conversation of how do First Nations people inform this current struggle to the people who have arrived and that don't have the long history in place. So that's a long opening. Sorry, Ian.
It's a good opening. It's the right context. You know, when we talk about Indigenous wisdom, I've been working in this space for a long time. I'm not Indigenous, but I've spent time in the Arctic and the Atlantic, all over this country called Canada, working with Indigenous peoples and Indigenous wisdom around climate. And what you expressed, the actual mask itself encoded with this wisdom, it speaks to the depth, like you mentioned. And we also are living in this thing called the modern world where FNLC, thank you again, Robert and Hugh, for being here. They've written a strategy that we have up on the screen right now, trying to blend that Indigenous wisdom, the depth, the insight, the place-based knowledge with how we deal with this moment right now. And I'm just wondering if you would like to reflect on the First Nations climate strategy, the relationship protocol, and how we can bring both Indigenous wisdom and Western science, Indigenous science together to work in a way that helps us deal with the moment we are currently in.
I applaud the First Nations Leadership Council for the vision around the establishment of this climate action plan and strategy, and also PICS and UVic and the other post-secondary institutes for the willingness to collaborate on addressing this critical challenge of climate change and biodiversity loss. This is the beginning of something that could be very informative to what we need to do to navigate this climate change that's occurring. And who better than the local communities and the knowledge keepers to share their insights, because many times my observation has been Western science will take some numbers and create a little plan and then extrapolate out, and good examples of that are the management of natural resources like fish and timber, and it extrapolates out, but if they're off by a couple of percentage points, it will have devastating impacts on communities, and we are the ones that have to live with those impacts. So it makes sense to have First Nations people who live in these rural and remote places be able to build that institutional capacity, and that's the work through this collaboration and the implementation of this protocol to support place-based people to advance, to ensure that we're determining what the research questions are so it can inform the strategies to keep our people safe from the onslaught of the things that are referred to as climate change. We've got atmospheric rivers on the West Coast. We've got wildfires that's all too familiar with all of us, and the very impacts around our food security, the decline of the herring and the salmon and the caribou in the north. And I think that we're at a very important time because this work gives us a path forward around the holding the governments accountable, both provincially and federally, around honoring the legislation of UNDRIP and DRIPA. All the while they have legislated bills 14 and 15 and 5 provincially and federally. And so our challenge is, how do we navigate this? Like, we're being fed a false narrative that we could only support the economy and not the environment, that this impedes our progress. And in fact, I think that what we have an opportunity to do is build a robust, sustainable economy, not only for ourselves, and that's a part of our teachings, but for our future generations.
Thank you, Frank. Strong and important words here. And you've not just been talking about it, you've been doing it. So you are the Pacific lead for the Indigenous Leadership Initiative on Guardians. Do you want to talk about the role that Guardians play at that interface of making what you just said possible?
Yeah, so myself and Dave Porter, Casca Dene, and Bev Sellers, highly regarded First Nations leaders in British Columbia and beyond, are advisors to the Indigenous Leadership Initiative, and we've been looking at professionalization and accreditation of Guardians. There are over 200 Guardians in Canada, and about 70 of them in BC. And so the institution of Guardians is a very important one because we do have momentum and some institutional capacity building. And the creation of Guardians is righting a colonial wrong. Because the legislation that was enacted that put us on Indian reserves and stripped us of our governance models also attempted to strip us from our relationship to our traditional territories by limiting that ancestral relationship that goes back millennia. So enacting Guardians is the most current manifestation of that inherent commitment and responsibility to the stewardship of the natural world. And what we are preparing to focus on specifically is supporting climate guardians in British Columbia to go deep into the question of how do we begin to mitigate these impacts of climate change? How do we ensure the food security of our people? How do we ensure that our next generations are taken care of? And so it's through the Guardian work and this initiative around climate guardians that's being piloted in British Columbia. We are going to pilot this work through the support of the Leadership Council, through the support of PICS, to give effect, to give meaning, to give purpose, and give focus to this work. So I'm pretty excited about the possibilities because, as usual, it is the First Nations people that are coming forward with the solutions. I question the moral authority of other governments and society more broadly because the history of the eradication of the natural resources in a few generations it's an abysmal story of rape and pillage and not being responsible, not holding a responsibility for our future generations so that there's something there. So we come not empty-handed, but with an incredible insight and knowledge, and biodiversity and cultural diversity mirror each other. And even though there's an attempt to eradicate our cultures and our language and our practices, it was through our young people that held on to that belief and rejected the forces of colonization when people were saying to us, "You're nothing but a stupid Indian and you don't know what you're talking about." When in fact it was the young people and the women that were holding on to those teachings, and then now in the face of this recovery and decolonization, we begin to move forward in a good way. And that's a powerful statement of resiliency within our communities, because one of our values and ethics is to share. Even though we've been so hugely impacted on, we're still willing to share. We're still showing up to do the work.
On that note, Frank, I think there was applause coming. I feel like there was applause coming. We don't want to get in the way of the applause. This is a celebration. It's a celebration of these young women, or the matriarchs that we talked about, the students, that intergenerational exchange that you are talking about, Frank. And when we talked about this conversation, we talked about the Heiltsuk Hikila word. And do you want to take us into that Heiltsuk word and what it means, and maybe reflect on Heiltsuk climate action and how it all fits together in practice?
Yeah, so you could see on the screen, it's actually Hikila, to take care of. And you could see there's Nala, the word Nala in there. And the mask you seen was the Nala mask. And so we exist in this biosphere in a time and place and as a species. And the earth is propelling through the universe. And here we sit. And we have to take care of what we have in our very fragile existence within this biosphere. And the Heiltsuk people, in particular, an organization which I'm a member of the board of directors, Heiltsuk Climate Action, went to our membership and got advice on what their priorities are. You could see up there on the right-hand side about efficient heating systems, renewable diesel, like we're doing biodiesel, a solar project, retrofitting homes to reduce our carbon footprint, looking at passive housing, electrification of our marine vehicles. And so these were the community's wishes, not what Frank thought, but we went deep in getting direction from our community, and now we're implementing that plan amongst the other First Nations communities in the province. This is merely an example about how we are stepping up, and we're, as a nation and as a community, we're almost carbon neutral.
And importantly, Leona was the lead person for that Heiltsuk climate action. So any final thoughts on Leona and the work that we're doing here today, Frank, before we kind of move on to the next stages?
So yeah, Leona was like a sister to me. We graduated from high school together. We lost her tragically in a vehicle accident, and her and my cousin Valerie, shout out to the family. You know, we wanted to honor their memory and honor the work that Leona did, and it's a really strong message to all of us about how fragile our lives really are, and that we can't take anything for granted. She had the beautiful energy. She was a social convener, and she supported the young people, as that was mentioned, and then she lost her life. And so we have work to do in front of us. This is merely the beginning. The fellowship is 2 years, and I've been saying, you know, it's a 2-year window, and what are we going to get done in 2 years so that we're setting it up so we can empower our communities, to create allies, to secure resources, to advance this work. And I think we've made the right moves here. And in particular, creating an alliance with the Leadership Council, who supports the rights and title holders, the 203 First Nations in British Columbia, to support them to begin to come up with their own strategies, and the Academy, who is trying to figure out how are we going to do this work. And so we set the table to do good work in a collaborative way where the research is not extractive to our people. People aren't building their academic careers on the backs of First Nations communities, but it's actually that the value of the research is informing the thinking of our leadership so we could get to free, prior, and informed consent, to give meaning and effect to this legislation that the governments of British Columbia have endorsed for the rights of Indigenous people. So I see this as an opportunity and a very, very urgent matter that it's going to take all of us to do this work. And sometimes, you know, it needs the spark, it needs the focus. We can, instead of starting out here with, I refer to it as a shotgun approach, we give it some focus with a very specific rifle approach, working in specific projects that will inform the thinking of our communities and inform the thinking of other governments so that we can move together. Wallace Gayasaka, Way, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Chief Brown. I think you might need to turn your mic on if it's not on already. When you set this in motion with us, you said you wanted this to be a ceremony, and as part of that ceremony, you said that we needed witnesses. Do you want to maybe, for people online and people who here who haven't maybe been to a ceremony like this before, what that context is and what's about to happen next?
So I think the witnessing is like many of the rituals on the coast are very important to us because we didn't have a written language. So it was recorded in the collective memory of the people, including all of you, but in particular, the CM, the people in high regard. And so we have before us our hosts from Lekwungen, Frank George, and our Leadership Council that represents the First Nations leadership for 203 First Nations in British Columbia, and the president of the university, who have listened and witnessed this presentation. And so we invite them to share what they have seen and heard and provide their words to reflect on what has transpired. And that is our law. That is our custom, that is our tradition, and that system has served us well and has carried us for thousands of years. Wait.
So on that note, I'm going to pass this microphone to Elder Frank George to start that process. If you want to stay there in your chair or come to the podium, it's up to you. Go to the podium. To share with us what he has witnessed and his thoughts on today.
Thank you. That was very, very interesting. I know I'm going to have to get more involved with this climate change now. I haven't been involved enough, just a small fraction. But we're having so many problems all over the world now with climate change. I know there's some politicians that are in denial about climate change, but it's there, it's alive. And it's causing trouble all over the world. There's a lot of disasters from climate change. And we have to stand up, we have to listen, we have to get involved. And there's got to be a cure here some year. Excuse me. But I thank Frank Brown for opening his treasure box and sharing his mask with us. That was quite a ceremony. And I raise my hands to you, Frank, Kathy. Aichkwasiamp. And I thank the other speakers that are going to be speaking here tonight, like Hugh Breaker, Robert Phillips. I'm anxious to hear their expertise on this climate change. So I'll just hand the mic over to one of them then. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Hugh Breaker, Political Executive for the First Nations Summit and representative of the First Nations Leadership Council.
Tleko, ushakshakleds, matmas, uchlamach tapushwa, istakshit sahai, tseshaat, nuchanathat, uchlama he hokenes, my first name, all the noise you hear at a happy potlatch. Hamisinul, my second name, means climbing up or ascending in life. Tapu Shikwis, leader of the whales when the whales are dancing. And Tapushkwa, whales coming around the corner. They say Nuu-chah-nulth have 4 names in their life. I've got my 4 names. I have to keep looking at the back of me, make sure nobody's there ready to tell me, okay, you've had enough now, go. In Nuu-chah-nulth, witnesses have a number of responsibilities. If somebody stands up later somewhere and says, Frank, he did that wrong. He said something that wasn't right. It's my duty, my responsibility. And I'm compelled to stand up and say, you're wrong. He did things right. He said the right things. You weren't there, I was. The other task we have is to remember what happened here and who was here. I may not know all of your names, but I know, generally speaking, who is here. And many of the First Nations people, I know you. I recognize your faces. And when time comes and I return home to Nuu-chah-nulth land, then it's my duty and responsibility to stand up and tell the people what I saw here today. That's my responsibility to spread the word. We didn't have television or radio or anything back in the day. So now my responsibility is to take the message forward and make sure everybody hears it, particularly the issue of climate change. It's going to hurt all of us. And so First Nations people did not wait. The Leadership Council came up with a plan from our viewpoint to fight for changes in climate change so that it doesn't happen. And we thank Frank for bringing us all together today, and PICS as well for bringing us all together today so that we could have a discussion on this. Chua chua.
And next we have Robert Phillips from the First Nations Summit and also part of the First Nations Leadership Council. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, Wait, Chukwinuk. As mentioned, Robert Phillips. I'm from the Northern Shuswap Kalmuk, part of the Shuswap Nation, Shuswap Nation, and as well from the Choek tribes, born in Chilliwack and part of Skokale family relations, and certainly give acknowledgements to Songhees and Esquimalt and the university. The reason I bring up the university, not only because we're here at the university, but the fact that they built something like this where we can connect and all face each other, except for we were sitting in the front, couldn't see the people in the back, but anyway. And certainly Elder George for welcoming us, and as well the prayer, the drummers, the singers, the mass dancers. Thank you, Kukstam, so much. And I also think of every time when I go to a place like the meeting we had this morning in preparation, there was one chair that was open. And I think of the future generations. I think of the spirits. I think of those that have passed on, great leaders, and too many to speak of. And I think of that as I look at an empty space, that they're there and they're here now. Just like I said this morning, a lot of times people have protocols with the First Nations Leadership Council, comprising of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, the BC Assembly of First Nations, and the First Nations Summit. And a lot of times these organizations, that's the height of the agreement itself, because then they're able to go around, we have a protocol. And what I see differently for PICS is they're putting not only words to action, but action to words. And I always say this one message, and that message is very important in terms of we need to do more and we need to do it now. And each of us are champions in our own way, whether it's academia, whether it is students of life, or here in school. We all each play a role. We are all witnesses. So in this place where I'm at, I get elected by chiefs, but we each are, as soon as you wake up in the morning, are political. You're elected to life, and you're here now, and we have a job to do. So this is not about you or I today. It is about Hereditary Chief Frank. And I say a lot of times, Chief Frank, because a leader that has been put in place to do a job, a champion. And just like in a lot of cases where we get up and we go to work, the one thing I like about this term that Frank will do is that he's going to put words to action. He has already outlined an action plan. So you know, a lot of times people get in the position and then they start drafting it up. I know he already had a plan coming into this position. So I really think that is very important. And I know Ray Harris, he's the co-chair, and he always reminds me, go this short on the speech. But I couldn't, because I too have to take off. I have to catch a ferry. I know he's already overdue. So many leaders say this one thing, and it's already been said for First Nations. We have to consult with First Nations. We are not a stakeholder. We have been here for thousands of years, already taking care of this land. And we're going to be around 1,000 years later, potentially beyond, this great country of Canada. But we don't want to. We want to work with Canada. We want to work with British Columbia. We want to work with local, regional organizations and universities in that spirit of partnership. So with that, I will finish and thank each and every one of you for the work that you've done, and I will be a witness today. Kukstam, thank you.
And it is my great pleasure to invite Dr. Robina Thomas, the president of the University of Victoria, to the mic. Robina is an amazing leader. She's actually on the PICS Executive Council, but she's also the first Indigenous president of this university. So please give a warm welcome to Robina Thomas.
Aichkwel Sam Nasieu, Sam Nashkwalakwa. Good day, respected friends and relatives. Antha Kwaltsiamat. My name is Kwaltsiamat. My English name is Rabina Thomas. Tanitsin Ait Layaksen. I'm a member of Layaksen, but through my grandmother and my mother, and most of my family were Snanemo, and through my grandfather, we were Stalo. Heiltsuk Salquain, to all of the elders that are here, dear Ray, Frank, thank you for being here. I think I've seen Frank at every event for about the last 2 weeks that I go to, so thank you for being here, for welcoming us, and for always reminding us of our responsibility to this land, but for being willing to share it with us. I am forever grateful. Haichkasiam. I would also like to thank Lolita, Hugh Breaker, Robert Phillip, and to all of the community members and university people that have shown up here today to support this really important event. Haitzepkasiam. And I hold my hands up to Randy, my dear friend Randy, George, and and Tommy, thank you for the song and for just really settling us in this place, in this time. I just hold my hands up to you with the deepest of respect. And lastly, to Chief Brown, Hereditary Chief Brown, for being willing to join us here. What an honor it is for you, Vic, to be able to work with you over this next bit of time. Just, it's our privilege. Thank you. Haitzepkasiam Nasieu. Thank you, all respected ones. I'm really thinking a lot about today and today's events and what I've been able to witness. And it's just an absolute honor. At UVic, we talk about Étole Noel, to respect the rights of one another and being in good relationships with all things. And this principle really encourages us to move beyond our individual rights and our collective rights and to focus on our relationships with one another, with the land, with the water, and with all things. And I think you said Nala, weather. And you know, last night, I was woken up by Nala, by the winds, and saw the weather in my backyard as all my recycle bins were everywhere, as was the recycling, all scattered in the backyard with my grandchildren's toys that should have been put away and weren't. Really spent a lot of time too remembering stories and thinking when you were talking about how things have shifted. And as a young child, I used to think a lot about my grandma, who was my everything, who I share her name with, and the stories she used to share all the time about when I was a child, this is what it was like. And I used to think, oh, gee, Gram, you know, it couldn't have changed that much. And now as a grandmother, I'm sharing those stories with my imeth, with my grandchildren, because things are changing so fast. And I'm just so honored to hear the stories I've heard today and to witness the really good work that's happening through PICS and through the First Nations Leadership Council, because I think it's about those relationships and it's about us building out those relationships across the province that will help us move forward in a good way. So honored with the young people. Thank you so much for your powerful words and for your commitment, and to the other youth that are working with PICS, because it is the young people that will move this project forward in a really good way. One of the teachings that was shared with me and we use here at the university, be prepared for the work to come. And today, as I sat here witnessing this events, all I could think about is, are we prepared for the work to come? Because right now it's not about us, it's about those coming behind us. And are we, each of us, doing what we need to do for those that are yet to come? And that's our responsibility. And in closing, I just want us to all really think about what is it that each and every one of us can do We can make small changes. We can make those commitments to ensure that we have something to leave for those behind that are coming behind us. And so in closing, it's been an honor, an absolute honor to be asked to be a witness here today, to see everyone in our beautiful First Peoples house, to be able to see you sit here and to be able to witness a movement forward about our work to be prepared for the work to come. Heiltsuk kasiyam nasiyeyu. Thank you all for joining us today.
Say anything, Frank, just to put the blanket. Okay. So we're going to take a photo with the witnesses, and Tom, Frank has just requested that you come up and help out with this part of the closing to our ceremony and celebration today. We're such an efficient program that we're ahead of time, and so now we are working on how Tom and Randy and company are going to help close this out in a good way. So again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for the witnesses, and Frank might have some final closing remarks just to kind of send us off after this moment.
Just wanted to thank everybody for taking time. Thank you all for your concern about this very critical issue that will determine the fate of ourselves and our families. And it's very important that we provide leadership to our young people. I think about the herring when they were targeting mature herring for the sack roe. And young herring didn't really know what to do. They didn't know where to go to spawn, because herring is not like a salmon. It will spawn up to 5-6 times in its life. And so the mature herring provided guidance in the school. And that's kind of like us. We need our elders and our knowledge keepers to provide guidance and direction, so we don't just keep repeating the same thing over and over again, but we understand what the path forward is. And so it's heartening to me to have you all here because you're concerned, you're interested. It's very much appreciated. A shout out to the family of these two beautiful matriarchs that have passed, and to my daughter, Isla Brown, who's been our champion within the Heiltsuk Climate Action as a strategic advisor in putting our plan together. And there's many, many young people like this, and we have to support them and empower them to do this critical work. Wallace Gayasika, thank you so much.